shop and to open a coffee roaster in Tacoma and Renton. So let's begin. We'll start with Efrem. Go ahead, Efrem.
Oh, okay. I was gonna give it to Quincy first too.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. I appreciate it. To both Seattle Good and to you, Edward. I truly appreciate the opportunity to be here with my good brother Quincy as well. Truly honored. So, how I got started in coffee was really, traditionally in our households, we've grown up with coffee being roasted and brewed. I'm of Eritrean descent, and in East Africa, particularly in Ethiopia, where coffee originates out of, where it's the birthplace, there's been a tradition of coffee consumption that goes over 1,000 years. And we continue to practice this tradition inside of our households back in Eritrea, Ethiopia, and even parts of Somalia and Sudan, but then also in the diaspora here. And so I grew up with that, but then I also, because I grew up in Seattle, I was familiar to the coffee scene here. I wanted to learn a little bit more about my heritage, and I took a trip in 2011 to Eritrea. And when in Eritrea, I got to see kind of both worlds combined. Both the traditional side of coffee roasting and brewing, and then also the contemporary side. Since Eritrea was colonized by Italy, a lot of cafes existed there. And so the experience there was like none other. They would roast in the back and then in turn use the stuff that they roasted and use it for their cafe. And the entire place smelled like freshly roasted coffee. The drinks were incredible. And upon returning back from my 3-month stay there, I decided to dive into coffee and started working on my business plan and had a vision for what I wanted to do. And at the end of 2011, I took it to a few banks and got rejected. But by March of 2012, I still incorporated the business, and I then started reaching out to family that I had in Ethiopia on how to source coffee and where to get it from. And that's kind of what started my journey into coffee. But yeah.
Nice. Same question to you, Quincy.
Yeah, our story is crazy. Again, I want to echo Efrem and say thank you to Seattle Good and to you, Edward, for having this discussion. It's important to have, and I'm super honored to be here, to be a part of it. Our journey was more of like a we needed jobs situation. My whole thing with coffee was a little weird in that. So I, for a time from 2012 to about 2016, I was a touring musician a lot. I toured, I played over 300 dates in about 80 cities around the country. And part of my routine every time I would go to a new city was to find the new coffee shop, a local shop, just to do work. I was completely independent. And so that was kind of my intro to like third wave coffee, but it wasn't necessarily a good one. It was again, it was like I had to find free Wi-Fi and I couldn't stay in the airport forever. So, but the culture around a lot of these small coffee shops around the country was very elitist, and I didn't like that. And that really stuck with me for a while. So when the opportunity came, now I'm a couple that with my wife and I, like most young couples, we always talked about our dreams and what we wanted to do. Oh, one day it'd be great to have a coffee shop. And yeah, that wasn't something we were like super serious about until we had to be. I got off the road and started a job at a marketing agency once we got married and had kids. Mm-hmm. And I got unexpectedly let go from this marketing agency in Seattle, where I was running small business and nonprofit strategy. And then 3 months later, my wife had gotten injured at her job. She's already a disabled Army veteran. And so she suffered a pretty nasty concussion. A patient of hers attacked her for like the 4th time. And we were like, we got to do something new. And that sparked us to say, well, what about that coffee thing we'd always talked about?
Mhm.
And we were serious about it this time because at the time we had the mortgage, we had the 2 car payments and 3 kids and no income. So something had to happen. And yeah, we started down the path of just trying to figure out how we could be a force for good in coffee. And we talked about it on a drive home from Utah where her parents live. So we had 13 hours to basically iron out what Campfire Coffee was going to be. And then eventually try to reach out to some roasters that we knew personally, and they all kind of blew us off, which left a very sour taste in our mouths. And that's when her sister actually suggested we roast over a campfire, because we do camp a lot. This isn't like just a gimmick or like, oh, it's like we are super outdoorsy people just as much as we are coffee people. And she was talking to her sister and asked, you guys should try it. And so boom, then we started roasting coffee literally in the fire pit in the backyard and practicing. And we decided, okay, well, here we go. We're not only going to open a coffee shop, but we're going to also roast our beans. And then we found out, oh, right, this is how they roasted coffee for like 1,000+ years before the big industrial roasters came in the fashion, 150 years ago or so. So yeah, it's just been this whole thing of like necessity has pushed us where we needed to go, and we've just been trying to ride that since.
Nice. Oh man, it's great stories, guys. I mean, I know you guys now very well, but I didn't know this background from you guys. This is great. Now my next question will be, you guys. So this is very dear to me. So how does it feel to be one of the only few Black-owned coffee roasters here in the United States? So we'll begin now with you, Efrem. Go ahead.
It's sad. It's sad. It's very lonely and sad. And when I say that, it's that because if you look at where coffee originates out of, it's out of Africa, and most of those that are picking the cherries, doing the very very difficult labor-intensive work are typically Black and brown, and then as soon as it hits a ship, it becomes very white. And we've seen that in coffee industry here in the U.S. And in Europe. And so when the commodity is the second biggest traded in the world, and it's so much in American culture now, but to have such very little representation of that here is really, it is sad. And so I remember when I was first getting into it, especially going to events and things, the only Black person there, unless the producer came from Brazil or from Kenya, it's the only time you saw typically people of color. And so that was 2011, 2015 up until there, and even even to the extent now, I mean, it's still pretty dominant. But and so the hope has and continues to be that trying to tell that story of that it is a product that comes from Africa, that it has deeper roots and history in our cultures, and that it definitely has opportunity within it. Just like Quincy was talking about how him and his family created an opportunity within coffee, no different than myself. There are opportunities within it from a livelihood perspective, but then also as a sense of pride as well, in knowing kind of the historical context of coffee and what it does, and how you can bridge between so many Afro Caribbean countries to source coffee, from Jamaica, you go into Belize and Central America, Costa Rica. There's so much opportunity for a strong and kind of a robust economy for Black and brown folks to start, playing more and to grow more within it. Just kind of showing that is the ultimate goal, or having people in it is the ultimate goal. But showing people that there is opportunity is definitely something that we're trying to strive for. But it's it is, the landscape is changing for the better. I'd say it is getting better. It's slow, but it is getting better. And I think that You see it in, how, Campfire, Black Coffee Northwest, Cafe Avo, all these different Black-owned coffee roasters, and even, just in general, this community of recognizing that there are many other sources for great coffee, and that community being built amongst us is also just beautiful. It's very harmonious and very supportive. That I think it has a much more ahead of it, and I think it's looking pretty bright.
Yeah, I would echo again what Efrem said, man. It's sad. It is deeply saddening to know that history and then look around and say, wow, like there's 2,000 coffee roasters in North America, and there's like 10, 20 Black-owned roasteries. Like, that is insane to me. But also there is, again, to echo what Efrem's saying, is it's starting to change. It's starting to look better. For me, the real sad part was I was talking to Phyllis Johnson, who is, she's like the queen in coffee, older Black woman. She's been in the industry for decades, and she has worked in basically every facet of coffee, from importing to, roasting and everything. And she gave me this excerpt from a book that was written maybe 5 years ago, where the author was doing research and found that about a third of Africans that were enslaved and brought to the Americas were actually brought here for their ability to cultivate and grow coffee. And that's not something that is ever talked about. Like, this was just a few months ago. I'm 37 years old. I just learned this a few months ago, that a third of these people, now all we hear about is tobacco and cotton and all, the big crops that were here. But yeah, they were coming to places like Brazil and Jamaica and what is now Haiti and places like that, and even southern parts of the US to try to cultivate coffee growth. So yeah, to know that, like, at some point, this industry became immensely whitewashed, and our connection to it historically was removed. Even though, you can walk into a Starbucks right now and see a floor to ceiling mural of a grower, of a farmer. Like, they put this out there, like, these are Black and brown people that are the ones doing the work, they're doing the labor. And for some reason, like, I feel like just in the general sphere of coffee and coffee knowledge, like, yeah, we know coffee comes from Africa if you work in the industry, but that heritage isn't celebrated. It isn't talked about. I mean, and I'll admit, I was one of them. For a long time, I thought coffee came from Italy. It sounds stupid, but the way it had been marketed for so long, especially here, was like the names of the drinks and everything is Italian. And it's like, then you find out it's like some cheap ripoff of Italian coffee culture. But, the average person doesn't know that. So yeah, it is sad for that. But man, and it comes with some immense challenges. We try to pride ourselves on having a diverse staff, and that doesn't just mean hiring all Black and brown. We try to, but it's hard to find even people from diverse backgrounds to apply. We've had over 800 applicants at our shop. I think I can count on one hand the amount of Black and brown or LGBTQ people that have actually applied. It is insane how few people of color or people that identify as something other than have actually been welcomed into this industry. And I'm kind of wondering how we can do better to flip that switch and turn it up a little bit more. How do we get people into training programs and into these cafes, behind the bars, and working behind the roasters and all of that. I try to be even aware of who I hired as a co-roaster is a woman, because every roaster that I had met in the last few years was like a middle-aged white dude, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's so homogenous that like you don't even see very many women standing at a roaster, you know, even in the marketing. I've met some now, you know, in the last few months, but still it's one of those things where it's very far and few between. And the gal I hired, she had no prior roasting experience, just like I had no prior roasting experience. But, you know, she learned how we roast and, you know, picked it up pretty quick, and she's phenomenal. But yeah, there's hope, but it's kind of sad. It still is kind of sad.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, macchiato and all these Italian words, you know, caffè con pan. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You know, when you see those names, you definitely like, oh, you know what? Maybe it is from Italy.
Yeah, I thought it was completely an Italian thing. Even the equipment, the machinery, you know, it's everything is coming from Italy. But then you know, it's like, oh, they have had their impact on the industry, right? Obviously, but it's definitely not only an Italian kind of thing that we got going on.
Exactly. Now, guys, I know you guys touched base on this. I just wanted to know, what were some of the barriers of entry you faced, you know, coming into this coffee industry? So go ahead, Efrem.
And Quincy, well said. Really strong points. Thank you so much for that. Barriers of entry, one was definitely the rejections from banks, and the reason being is that, you know, what I was getting was this was 2011, and they're like, you know, how are you going to compete with Starbucks? How are you going to compete with Starbucks? Was just what I would keep hearing, and I was like, that's not my intention. You know, not everybody wants to be, you know, on every corner, and no shade on Starbucks, you know, but I mean, because they've done some good too, but at the same time, that's not my goal. And the reason for that was, one, you know, they're obviously looking at it from an economic perspective, and it's not like the numbers didn't make sense. They did make sense, but, you know, trying to prove the cultural importance, the significance of it, and why I wanted to source only African coffee, and, you know, why I thought that having the traditional coffee ceremony in the cafe would be important. Those types of things didn't resonate to them. And so, you know, the audience of who I was talking to was, you know, white men, you know, from the banking industry. So they're wanting to see it a specific way. That was my first barrier. Second one was within coffee itself, you know, just getting, you know, acknowledged, or, you know, given the space. There was very few roasters. I kind of ran into the same thing as Quincy, where there's very few that are really willing to open the door. And those that did, you know, I was super grateful to them, because they showed me so much and provided me kind of some understanding and kind of guidance to how to move forward. But yeah, you know, the industry though is one where it's like, you know, kind of gatekeepers, and, you know, want to keep it the same. But you know, if you walk in, you know, your truth, and, you know, you walk in the path that you've set out to, and walk confidently along that path, I think you'll get that acknowledgement. Maybe you don't even necessarily need that anymore or want it, but at least from an industry perspective, like, this is also coffee. This is also a way to do it. That kind of acknowledgement is something that took time to get to, because I operated in green coffee for a long time before I got into roasting. And green coffee, for those that may not know about it, is really the raw product. So it's the onion before it's grilled, you know. And so it's the green coffee is the raw product, and as you cook it, as you roast it, it gets browner in color. And so I sold the green coffee to the East African community, because that community continued to do the traditional coffee ceremony, and they only wanted the raw product. They want to roast it themselves. And so I focused in on them and started putting the product out into places where they'd find it. But those were some of the barriers of entry, bank, and then also the industry itself.
Yeah. Cost, the money. Oh man, that was the biggest barrier for us. And, you know, we don't have rich parents. Whitney and I, we don't come from from money. And if I'm being quite honest, my introduction, and I think still holds true, is coffee roasting in kind of what we would consider the traditional sense now is a very expensive game to get into. You know, the equipment that is required if you're doing any kind of volume, to buy one of these big Probats or a big Dietrich or Ambex with the afterburner, and then you got to go and get all the EPA involved and all the certifications you need. Like you're knocking on $100,000, you know, just to get in the game, right? Like, so that is, again, you know, not only that, the cost thing, but I said the roasters that I met they're some of the sweetest dudes on earth. And I'm thinking of a couple in particular that really did impart a lot of knowledge, but when it came down to like saying, hey, we want to work with you, doors were closed, man. It was like okay, we'll let you get, but so far, but once you want to cross that line, we're not doing that. So it was like I said, it forced us to roast. We didn't even necessarily want to get into roasting to start. We thought that we would source our coffee from somewhere else, and who better? Because the reason why only reason why I knew some roasters was prior to that, like before even getting into coffee, I had put out an album and put out a coffee with it. It was this outdoor themed album. When we go camp, we have coffee in the morning. It's kind of like our ritual. We wake up, we brew the coffee over the campfire, we do the whole thing. So I put out this coffee with a roaster, and I went to that roaster first, and I still haven't heard back from this guy. It's insane. So it was weird because we would talk almost daily about roasting. And then when it came down to actually doing something, you know, he was gone. And same with another gentleman that I'm thinking of. So yeah, those barriers are there, man. Coffee roasting is not, even now with how we do it, it's not cheap. It's not $100,000 worth of equipment. We're literally in a fire pit with you know, we've gotten more sophisticated now. We have a couple setups, nice drums with motors, and you know, we had to get them custom fabricated and made to pipe out the smoke, and that wasn't a cheap thing. I mean, we're still about $20,000 in on roasting equipment, which isn't cheap, but we had to gradually get there. You know, and we actually did a GoFundMe to try to get equipment for the shop. And this is funny because, and Efrem might laugh at this. Our GoFundMe was for 10 grand. We thought 10 grand was like going to do it for us. We were going to be in the game, and we hit 10 grand. And I had like this equipment list, and I started actually like Googling the prices of what an espresso machine would be. And I was like, oh man, I'm like 30 grand shy of even getting like the best used gear I can get, man. So it was, you know, it was just a learning curve, you know, and there's not a lot of information out there that is accurate because everybody's situation is different. And if you like Google, you know, cost to start a coffee business, or they're all over the board. And, you know, our situation was no different. It was super just like one of a kind. And we had really no real guidance. We didn't know where to turn. I didn't even know Efrem existed, which is crazy, but I think that's more like the whole Seattle Tacoma thing. Like I had heard the name Boon Boona for a while, and I was just like, oh, that's cool. That's like Seattle. That's like it's a whole other country. But like, didn't even think to like, oh, you know what? Maybe you should reach out to him and see what's up. Like there's all of those little obstacles and barriers. And like, you know, leading into, there's these geographic barriers of Tacoma and Seattle. And even me, like I grew up in Federal Way and moved to Tacoma. So I went to Tacoma kind of like not knowing a whole lot. And then, you know, there's a ton of good roasters in Tacoma, but they were very unapproachable. You know, they talked to you for a little bit, but you know, it was just the whole experience of getting off the ground was an obstacle.
Yeah, it sounds to me like it was more like the game is to be sold, not to be told kind of thing in there.
Oh yeah, that's a great way to put it. A great way to put
it. Very true. Yeah.
No, no worries. Now, guys, I want to know why. I know you guys talking about your cities. Why did you guys choose, Renton? Why did you guys choose Tacoma, as your hub for your business? It's kind of, why not Seattle? Why not, Capitol? Oh, I know you got Capitol Hill now.
You're using Cap Hill now.
You got Capitol Hill, I know.
Just the cafe. Home is still Renton. Renton, it was a few things. I was, it was obvious. I couldn't afford Seattle. I couldn't afford to be in Seattle. And I knew that I wanted to do certain things in the space. I wanted to have a roastery in there. I wanted to have a cafe. I wanted to have the traditional coffee ceremony. And so operationally, it needed to work out. And so I needed a lot of space. So, I needed about 3,000 square feet is what I had in mind. And 3,000 square feet in Seattle is just ridiculously expensive. And then additionally, there's so many roasters in Seattle. Like, I mean, just another one there. I really wanted to build a relationship with the city and have a good relationship with the city, and city be proud of us and we be proud of them. Like, call like, hey, we are the roaster in that city. And also we realized though, that because there was so much specialty coffee in the Seattle area, that no one had gone into Renton, no one had gone into Kent or these areas outside of the city because of like this fear that, folks don't want to have good coffee. They don't want to pay the cost of, a specialty coffee roaster. But that wasn't the case. And we also found that, so there was all those factors. Plus, additionally, I look geographically, I felt that it was a great place for it too, because we are still 20 minutes away to Bellevue, 20 minutes away to Seattle, no traffic. We're close to the airport. We're close to Tacoma. It worked out geographically really well for it as well. So affordability, the amount of space that we needed, relationship with the city, and then to also, put more attention on that city as well. And we hope that we're doing good by Renton, by spotlighting it as much as we try doing. And then, basically the location where it's located at was another factor. So those were all the reasons for Renton. I also, my dad, we came here in '88, and my dad was offered a job with Boeing here in Renton. And so when we moved here, it was Renton that we came to basically when we immigrated. And so it also holds that kind of memory as well to my history as well. But yeah, so shout out to Renton.
That's crazy because my connection with Tacoma is almost verbatim, pretty much what Efrem was saying. Like I was born in Tacoma and spent a lot of time in Tacoma growing up. I said I went to school in Federal Way, but always spent time in Tacoma. And there was just, I'll never forget, I moved back to Tacoma proper like in 2006. And the reason why was the affordability. And that affordability has reigned true even to this day. I mean, I've always kind of trumpeted Tacoma as a place for if you wanted to start a business and you wanted a community that would support that business, Tacoma's the place. The city has been super supportive, and not just the people. The people have been immensely supportive of Campfire, but the city government too has been immensely supportive. Even though like we were kind of at heads a little bit when we were building out the space, we had some issues with the inspectors that they were sending through. There were some very disrespectful conversations that were happening that got all the way up to the mayor, but she was very supportive. The city reached out and they've been a big advocate for us ever since we got open. But the people of Tacoma, when they knew about the issues we were having getting the shop open just prior to the pandemic, I mean, they stepped up because we thought we were going to get open in March and the shutdowns hit and we started an online store instead. And we've been selling out of coffee every week ever since March 27th of 2020. And when we started out with like maybe 50 bags a week. and my wife would make hoodies and mugs and all the little trinkets that we have on our website. She makes all that. And next thing I knew, we were selling 100 bags and 100 pieces of merch, and then 200 bags and 200. Like, it was this thing where, and it was happening in Tacoma, and then it was spreading out across the country, then eventually overseas in different places they were buying from us. And so there was this whole like grassroots thing. And I knew that about Tacoma, having like kind of been in the city in my adult life, like knowing that, you know, when I had a music festival down there, the city of Tacoma stepped up and supported it. You know, I knew that the people would be there, but I'm not going to lie, man, for the spot that we have, if we had that spot in Seattle, there's no way we'd be able to afford it. But because it's in Tacoma, we can afford it. And we were able to afford a second location where we just roast and handle all of our operations for the online store. That's where I'm parked out in front of now. We wouldn't be able to have the two locations, you know, for what we pay for the two locations. I still don't think that we would have one spot in downtown Seattle. Like, it just, you know, it just, to get off the ground, there's no way we could have really afforded anywhere else. Tacoma's just been great. And we wanted to represent the city. We wanted to show that there was something different in coffee here, because Tacoma does have a strong specialty coffee culture with, I guess, there's 4 or 5 roasters in town that are all phenomenal. Like, they all do really good work. You know, like, this isn't, you know, some guys just in the basement cooking up Folgers style. Like, these are guys that are really roasting good stuff. And so we came into this, and even they were, you know, to a degree, mostly supportive, you know, so we wanted to show that this can be an area for specialty coffee and innovative specialty coffee as well. So yeah, and Tacoma's embraced it. So we love being here. We love claiming Tacoma as home. You know, it's where I've lived since '06, really. Yeah.
No, nice guys. Yeah, I know you got Valhalla down there. Valhalla makes some great coffee. But yeah, you guys are definitely in some prime spots, you know, in both in Renton and Tacoma. Both of your locations are clutch. I like those areas. Every time I go there and visit, you know, every time I swing by to get my coffee from Efrem, want to get my coffee from Quincy, you know, I always like going there and visiting. You know, the locations are great. I like going there. And now for you guys, I want to ask you guys, what are some words of wisdom, you know, for those people, you know, for BIPOC entrepreneurs, and those guys, and for you guys that don't know what the term BIPOC means, it means, you know, Black, Indigenous, people of color. So BIPOC or BIPOC, however you want to say it. For these entrepreneurs, what are some words of advice you want to tell them, and for them that want to pursue a career in coffee? So go ahead.
Words of encouragement. I mean, honestly, I can speak to kind of what it is that drove me to do it and what continues to fuel me, and maybe that's something that resonates for those listening. But it was something about doing something greater than just about myself. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was like, you know, I want to be in that space. But if I do it, I can't do it the same way it's been done. I need to look at it and look at it from a different angle. So I said, okay, how am I going to source my coffee? Who am I going to work with? I'm going to focus my attention on Africa. I'm going to focus my attention on these producers. I'm going to go find women producers. I'm going to find areas where there needs more opportunity, more development in coffee production. I'm going to spotlight them. I'm going to source that coffee. I'm going to bring it here. I'm going to roast it as perfect as possible. And then from there, I'm going to utilize the space that I have for my community as well. And then I'm going to engage outside of my space in my community also, whether it's donation financially or just showing up and offering free coffee. It needs to be like that. It needs to have something more than just myself. If it's all about financial gain and all that, like it would not satisfy me at all. But knowing that I'm doing it with a purpose, that there's good being done, and at least even in the small capacity, as we're a very, very small entity, to whatever extent that we can stretch ourselves to do good and do right, we're going to do those things. And so, find something that you're truly dedicated to, you're very passionate about. And I believe that it sometimes has to be things that are beyond self-satisfying and just self-fulfilling. It needs to also do good for someone else. That's where I find a lot of my joy. And that's what helps me through those hard days, throughout the craziness of our first year in business to a whole, year and a half of COVID. All those things are 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 made easier because there's a purpose that is beyond just my own satisfaction or own selfish goal. And so I would always put it as like, find something that's good and that's going to benefit somebody else, and move forward. So in any industry, that is, whether coffee or otherwise.
Gotcha. I understand. Quincy.
Yeah, I mean, again, man, Efrem's just knocking out the park. I gotta echo what he said. Find something that you are passionate about, and I know that word passion just gets beat into the ground to where it's like, do I really have a passion for it? Or do I just really like it? I don't even know, because the lines are blurred. But seriously, I mean, find something that you can't get out of your system and go for it. And on a more practical kind of like, what do I do now level, I learned some things that I love to share. I did the silly work of going off and getting a PhD in organizational psychology. And that's one of the things that really helped me stay sane through building Campfire. And there were a couple of key things that I take away from that I still use. One of them is a framework on how to view entrepreneurship. It's called effectual entrepreneurship. This is a theory on entrepreneurialism that I am a huge fan of. When I wrote my dissertation, it was my theoretical framework. Ironically, this theory was created in the year 2001 at UW Seattle by a woman named Saraz Sarasvathy, who now teaches business at University of Virginia. And what this theory ultimately makes you do is look at your startup, your maybe not even grown business yet. We got some fire trucks coming. It makes you look at your business through a lens of what you have at your disposal right now that is of benefit, and not so much of what you don't have. Because as entrepreneurs and young entrepreneurs, I learned, and I did it too, it's so easy to look at what you don't have. Well, I don't have $100,000 for the roaster. I don't have the rich uncle who can fund this. I don't have the perfect credit to go off and get a loan. I don't know how, right? Like, you talk about all the things you don't have. What effectual entrepreneurship theory makes you do is look at, okay, this is what I do have, and this is what I can control, and this is what I can afford to go out and take a risk on. And it may be incremental steps of things that you have to do. But if you know what you have to do to reach your end goal, this gives you a fantastic framework in which to do it. And to add some proof and validity to this theory was built by researching over 300 of the world's most successful entrepreneurs from all over the world. And they all did these things. Like, that's kind of the long and short of it, is they all kind of had that same outlook. They all looked at, geez, what can I use today? Mm-hmm. And for me, it was, I had a background in marketing, and my wife has a military background. So there's some creativity, and then there's some order and some management there. And we knew we had that. And then I also had a background in barbecue. So I knew how to cook with wood and wood fire, and we loved to camp. So we use those little things to our advantage to build a very true and authentic business to us. So when we say Campfire Coffee, yeah, it's the name and it's the method of how we roast, which is cool, but it's also just authentically who we are. Like, this isn't, we don't have to put on our campfire hat and be Captain Campfire every day. This is literally just us. We don't have the cool, fancy brand name that doesn't resonate with who we are. Like, we've made everything to be true to us. So it was easy. People can feel that. The other thing I would say, and I don't want to get off on a big tangent on it, but it also kind of is building off of what Efrem was talking about in doing good. We were fortunate that we won a business competition back in November through Kitsap Bank. And essentially the criteria was based in what is called triple bottom line business model. And I think that triple bottom line really exemplifies what you should be doing as a business or as an entrepreneur. You know, the three bottom lines are, yeah, profit is one, because you want to have a profitable business for sure. You have to take care of your finances, like do that. But also, how are you positively impacting the community socially? And how are you impacting the environment? And that just spoke right to what we're about. You know, obviously we're outdoorsy kind of people. You might want to say we're like black tree huggers, if that is a thing. So we do care about the environment naturally, and we do care about our community because our community has lifted us up, and that's really how economies are built. You know, the community gives to you, and you give back to that community, and it's this cycle that just keeps going. And the more people that join within your community, the quicker you build a brand. Because a brand is nothing more than a promise, right? A brand is a promise, and you have to continually deliver on that promise. And then B, as that community continues to grow, they continue to lift you up to new heights. And that's essentially what you want as at any stage of your business. So yeah, those are my very highly academic, nerd out ways of looking at it. But those are things that I hope you guys can go and look up. And if you have questions about what do I do next to get my business going, those are things that'll help you kind of like narrow your focus to where it needs to be.
Nice, guys. See, this is why I love talking about you guys. This is why I like, evangelizing your stories, because, you guys have very unique stories. This is why I like to promote your copies, because I love what you guys do. I respect work.
We should be referring to Dr. Quincy too. Dr. Quincy.
I know, right? PhD,
right? We need to put some respect on the name.
I know, Dr. Quincy.
I haven't defended the dissertation yet. It's written. I'm thinking I'm gonna just self-publish it now because I have no time to defend this thing. Almost, doctor. Almost.
You're a doctor in our eyes, all right?
My man.
And one last question, guys. This is the last one. Now I know you mentioned community. So what can the community do to help you guys right now? I know Efrem, you're going through some fight out there, with the construction in front of your Renton hub. And, I just want to know, what can the community do to help you guys right now?
Well, we've been fortunate in that the community has always been here to support us. I mean, that's what has been the driving force for us. We've been very fortunate for it. And even throughout COVID, I mean, once again, I keep saying, but like the first year, critical year, that's a prove it type of year. That was nothing but support. COVID, nothing but support. And now it's COVID, tail end of COVID, hopefully, and construction. But even with that, like the community still coming out and supporting, coming into the Renton Cafe, it takes a little bit of, navigating through the city and finding some parking and crossing barriers and jumping over things. Do it safely, but that's been what's supported and helped us continue on. Similar to Campfire, we also have an online presence, which we can ship out coffee anywhere in the U.S. And between our brick and mortar location in Renton and our new one in Capitol Hill on 12th and James, and online, that's the way we receive the support and how we continue to engage in our community. One big part about what we enjoy doing are pop-ups and events. And as a result of COVID, we've kind of held off on it, but we're hoping that we can do more. And in that space and in that time, what we're trying to do is whether it's educate, spotlight small businesses, spotlight artists, whether, artists that paint or musicians or authors or poetry, things that we like to do. So we love our community, and our community has done nothing but support us through all these hard times.
Amen. Go ahead, Quincy.
Oh man, online stores is a great way if you can't get down to Tacoma to check out our physical location. We love campfire.com. That's the website. That's our social media handles. And yeah, one way that, again, to piggyback off what Efrem is saying is if you are a creator, we want to have a space as well. And that value that, me being a creator in a former life, I understand the value that creators bring to brick and mortar spaces, and having a presence of that brings value to our space. If we can have that now, like you said, we're at the tail end, hopefully, of this whole COVID thing, and things down here are starting to open up. We just got into phase 3, after we had a rollback. So, we want to be able to highlight that, because that feels like a very reciprocal thing, and it supports us. It supports the creative community, especially if it has an outdoor kind of vibe to it. We love that. But yeah, tell a friend to tell a friend. We're also fortunate to be in some retail locations. So if you can't get down, there's some stores around town that we're in. And in the coming months, we should be in some ones that are actually kind of in Seattle. I'm not gonna say any names, but there's a couple of big ones, couple big fish on the hook. And hopefully that, they don't they don't run us through the wall, but we think some good stuff will happen. But one is Made in Washington. I know that's up there. We're in a couple of Made in Washington stores. So yeah, just find us. Nothing wrong with buying a bag. Buy a bag of Boon Boona. That is all reciprocal. Supporting this community of roasters and roasters of color, that keeps us all going. And the more of us that there are, the more these stories get to come out, the more that we inspire a new crop of roasters to come behind us. So yeah, just, you never know where that little $15, $16 will go. So drop that, or drop that share, on social media, whatever. Come through, pull up, as they say, as the kids say, pull up.
Now, so Andrea, so I guess we're open to the Q&As from you guys. There you are.
Right. And I'd also just love for Edward to let people know how they could support you as well. You didn't give much of an introduction of who you are and what you do.
I just love sharing these guys' stories. So guys, if I pretty much sell all their brands, any brand you can think of, from Campfire to Boon Boona. We're talking about guys in the East Coast, guys in the South. So all these guys, I support them all their brands. I'm here, so you can pick and choose whatever brands you want and create your own pack. So that's what we're here. This is NoirePack, and then we're the Black Coffee Experience. And we're here to help out our community. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, please ask us. Right now is a good time.
Yes, feel free to unmute yourself, show yourself on video if you want. We've got a couple minutes left here, so would love to hear about any other roasters that are here, or anybody that wants to share resources or has questions. So everyone gonna be shy?
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
Y'all can watch me eat banana chips. Food too. I'm drinking a great cup of Rwandan coffee right now and eating banana chips. And we'll just wait on questions.
A lot of the comments are just, thanks so much for sharing, and loved hearing your stories. So a lot of just appreciation for being here today and sharing what you do. It's always great to be able to put that history and know a little bit more about you, because maybe people have come out and enjoyed your coffee, but they don't really know kind of the startup and where you've come from. So it's just great to get that information about who you are and what you do. So love hearing these stories. So I think we're gonna gonna end right here on time. So thank you so much for everyone being here today. And thank you to our moderator, Edward, and our guests, Quincy and Efrem. I'll be pulling together the recording as well as all the great things we talked about today, and I'll send that out in an email so everyone can easily get to find our folks here today. So thanks again to everyone.
And share us on Instagram, share us on Facebook, guys. Spread the word.
All right, thanks everyone. Take care.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.